Hello, Peaceful Profits Nation. Chanel here with an exciting client spotlight episode for you today. So, today we are talking to our client, Kate Duffy. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chanel.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And we are going to have a great conversation today. So, first, I'd love to introduce you. Kate Duffy is the founder of Tipping Point Recovery, Inc. After facing and overcoming her own battle with substance use, Kate saw and felt the missing pieces at the recovery initiative Tipping Point. She has since made it her life's mission to bring families into the recovery conversation. Through hundreds of interventions, Kate has created a proven family recovery framework where families are empowered to rise above the frequency of addiction. Tipping Point Recovery now works with families around the U.S. to change the way they approach their loved one's addiction through both online group programs and custom interventions, and our results have been unprecedented. When families heal, their loved ones can too. I
Mm.
love that. What beautiful, beautiful work you're doing. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. Now, we're going to talk today a little bit about your work, but through the lens of your book, because you came to Peaceful Profits to write a book. So I would love for you to start off with telling us what got you interested in adding a book to this already amazing business.
Mm. It was probably reading an advertisement that you guys had about finding more people through a book, right? Teaching a book writing process. We have created, as you just described, an entire framework, but it is not mainstream. So what we're doing is really, it's unprecedented, it's unique, it's different, it gets pushback. So I guess it's alternative. To me, it shouldn't be. It needs to be mainstream because the outcomes are so high. But I've been just talking about it for years. We've been doing this as a company, I think, for 6 years. Personally, I've been doing it for about 8 or 9. And it's really hard to help people understand what it is. I knew we needed a structure. So I think, well, we knew we'd have a book, but I think for sure the timing was when I saw what you guys do, I said, I need that.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting because as I was reading your bio and what you do and what you work on, I thought, oh, that is different. That's a different angle than most people are teaching and really different than what we see. So I imagine that there is that piece. I'm curious, before you had a book, before any of this, when people would come into your world, what were some of their objections or questions or things that they just weren't sure about because it felt so new to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is what the book is really about, is one, the world believes that somebody needs to want to get sober and want recovery prior to making any change. And what they mean is, in order for people to change, they do need a level of internal motivation. That's true. Because addiction presents as resistant to treatment, and it's a lying and manipulating and denying disease, which I didn't know until it happened to me. Because of the way this illness presents, the person's actually incapable of willingness and wanting it for the most part, not 100%, but the majority. So, given what we now know about addiction, which is a lot more than we knew 50, 100 years ago, we haven't caught up with how we treat it. So, the objections were, well, this sounds great, but he doesn't want it. And I'm saying, yes, none of us want it. That's what we do, is we make them want it through our training of you. And so I was just they were unanimous objections. He has to want it. He probably doesn't. He's tried 10 times. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those are the objections. And that is because people are working with a system that's on an old model based on a moral addiction being a moral failing. We now know it hijacks the brain. We know the science of the brain. We're not operating from that lens. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. So
Yes.
much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how that showed up for me in my life personally was exhaustion, because I was just in this constant storytelling mode, constantly feeling like I was trying to convince people because I saw the results, yet not enough were it wasn't making sense to people because their mindset was they had to want it and they weren't presenting as wanting it. So therefore it won't work. So they would walk away from what I knew was a solution because I've been seeing hundreds of people use it. So talking to thousands of people, the ones that need it weren't, it's devastating. It may not be in tears, it's devastating. And that's what it was like before the book.
Oh, okay. I can see that because there is,
Yeah.
I actually have a close family member who is an addict. And so that is the model. That is what we're taught and what we're told. And
Right.
so I love the hope that this brings, that there is another way, that there is something different that, all the surrounding family who cares about this person can do and can help with.
Right.
Now, you said
Right.
you've had to convince people. Where did they come to you from originally? Like, what was their journey to get to you?
Right. Well, first of all, their journey to get to me is they've been through an awful lot. Let's just say that, right? People that have going through this with a loved one for years and years and years, and it gets worse over time. They're just pretty beat up. They've spent a fortune. They're emotionally drained, sometimes getting sick themselves from the stress and the exhaustion. So that's the shape they're in. But they found me word of mouth, all word of mouth, unless social media. I've been speaking on social media for a couple of years or I'd give a talk somewhere, but mostly a therapist told me or a friend who'd been through your program told me. Um, so social media a little bit, but I would say 60-70% referral.
Okay. So they had enough info to know, okay, she has something that I want, and then come to you, and then it's this process of needing to convince them of they're not sure that
Yep.
it will work for them.
Yeah, even with the family, a good friend of theirs having gone through the transformation, they were trying to help them. There's people are in fight or flight when they love someone and we're talking about, strong addictions to things that kill people really overnight and progressively getting worse. So these are people that they really weren't able to hear that there was something they could do because they were in such panic mode. And I just thought of something else. The big message was they don't want it. But the other message that the world gives families is there's nothing you can do. You just have to let them fall. And actually, that's wrong. There's a lot you can do. And more than there's a lot you can do, there's things you're doing probably that aren't helpful.
Well, okay, this is so good and just such crucial information. And I think that I can see how a book would solve the gap. I think it's helpful in so many businesses, but especially in a business like this where there is this education piece where people kind of need a mindset shift. And so I
Mhm.
think that's really cool. And we'll talk a little bit more about, your business and how it's helped and things like that. But let's start with the book writing process itself. So what was the book writing process like?
Well, prior to finding Peaceful Profits, we were writing and writing and writing and writing and organizing outlines and laying it out. And I constantly write. I mean, I have boxes of journals and notes because in every client interaction, I'm taking notes
Yeah.
and making adjustments to our curriculum. So that was long, and I didn't see an end in sight. When I got the format and Peaceful Profits, it started to come together. I needed that structure that Peaceful Profits provided. So for me, it was a massive breath of fresh air to have that. I can't speak highly enough about it. And I have an assistant who is a writer, and so that was helpful. But Peaceful Profit structure gave me a container. I knew how we wanted to lay it out. And so once I saw the first draft, I was stoked, so excited and obviously it took time to get it in print, but I burst into tears when I saw the first manuscript that it was, yeah, exhilarating. It was tiring prior to finding this framework. It wasn't tiring after. It was a lot easier. And one of the processes I used, I think you guys suggested it, is I talked in a recorder. And so for me, I'm a speaker more than a writer, though I am a writer. So we did a combination of posing questions to me, and I'd go for walks. And I drive down, through the community and I see spots where I remember what I was talking about on the recorder. So yeah, it was a beautiful process for me once we found the framework, not before.
Yeah, that is a beautiful process. And it all sounds so easy. Was any part of it challenging?
After it was written, editing, there was it. Well, first, let me say, yes, the part for me was I call it the inside job that I had to do about believing in myself, believing in my message. Now, I believe in the message because I'd been using it and clients were getting results, hundreds of clients. So I had no question, super on purpose with our mission. But my belief in myself, can I be successful? Can I really say this? And a lot of our teachings are nuanced. They're not black and white. And we're talking about life and death. So it was scary for me to put in print. What if someone misunderstands it? What if someone gets offended? What if someone takes it the wrong way? So not hard for me to get the words out at all. Not hard for me to structure it because of your process. It was a lot of work on the inside. And that was a period of a few years for me prior to even starting with Peaceful Profits. So that's what was hard, is the patience it took. I was the one in the way, no question. And I just kept showing up and doing the work though. And it was the evidence of the work that helped. And then it was, Kate, are you going to get in the way of this? Are you really going to step in the way of what the world needs? So the shift for me was paramount when I made the shift to, this isn't about me. This is about people that are struggling, whose families are enabling or complicit in some way and not even realize. And I need to do this for them. So that made it easier.
That
Yeah.
made me a little emotional hearing that.
Yeah.
I hope that listeners really could hear that too, what I just heard, because your work, it is life and death, and other people's work, even if it's not to the same level, people
Right.
have something to share. And when the focus becomes on us, we
Mhm.
miss the mark, we miss the point. And if you just focus on exactly what you just said, I have something that is going to help people get it out in the
Yeah.
best way you can and get out of the way. Don't be the one holding that, keeping that from the
Right.
world.
Yeah, I would say to people, to maybe we don't even articulate, it's an inside job and an outside job, writing a book, and it's both. For me, I couldn't have just done, I had to do both.
Yeah,
And
I
what
think
a
that's true
gift.
for everyone. Yeah.
Oh, I think so. And yeah, recognizing that if it's that powerful that you're compelled to put it in a book, it's a big deal. We need to step aside and let it come through us, right? Let it come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, in this book writing process, what surprised you?
How long it took from how many edits I needed and wanted to go through. That surprised me. I started talking about it being ready in November and it literally just came out too soon. I shouldn't have been talking about it that soon. Um, all the steps that have to happen to self-publish, all the particulars surprised me. What else surprised me? I think right now I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the response to it. But in terms of the process, probably just that it took longer than I thought. It didn't need to. That a lot of that had to do with the inside thing. So I would say to people listening, doesn't need to.
Yeah.
It just needs a regular schedule. It needs attention regularly. And for me, I needed someone else on my team to sort of be there. I couldn't leave it to me and something else would have pulled me off track. Like it had to become priority.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, I'm excited. You teased a little bit about what it's done in your business, and we will get to that. But first, I want to talk about the cover because when I saw the cover of your book, I was blown away. I think the cover is amazing. Can you explain to listeners, and maybe even for our video watchers, you can give us a visual, but what your book looks like and why you chose it?
So I'll first say that this was a struggle finding a design. And that worked. I was thinking really plain at first. And so we spent quite a bit of time looking at a lot of books to get ideas and inspiration, what kinds of things I liked, what felt like it was a fit for the message. And it became really important also when it was finished being written. I thought, this is incredible work. The cover needs to match that. And so we chose a company, and I'm not a one and done person. So we bought the two looks, they did design two covers because I thought, no, one is not enough. And we are so fortunate because prior to that, we were using just smaller contractors using Fiverr, and we really weren't getting anywhere. When we hired this company, we gave them some specs. We did not give them much. They didn't ask a lot. And which is why I was so surprised by what they discovered about us. They gave me two, and I couldn't open it by myself. I had to get my team to meet on Zoom to open it together. I was really scared. I was scared I wasn't going to like it. The second one, we ended up not liking at all. I even almost didn't even look at it. It was not good at all. It was a complete miss. The first one, which is what we chose, I had a physical reaction when I saw it. And at first it felt, I remember pulling back. It was this energetically just really strong. And to describe it, it has depth. What they must have gone to our website to get our brand colors. I didn't think I'd want the book in my brand colors, so I didn't give that to them, but they did. They picked up our colors, and they told a story in this cover that is exactly even things that they didn't know. It has just depth. I mean, so you want me to visually describe what it looks like as well?
Yeah. For people who don't get the opportunity to see it, like what is
Yeah.
cover?
So it's I don't know the color green actually, but it's a green is our logo, and it's gray, and it's divided in two. There's one side of the book is gray and one side is green. And it's called Dear Family. And there's a tagline at the top. Dear Family is in, I don't know if this is a technical term, but when they have paper that's like cut out and it's almost shadow behind, I'm calling them cutouts, but I loved that look of like a tear off so Dear Family, it makes it feel some depth. The words Dear Family are written in that way, like almost stenciled with cutout. And then the tagline is split up on the two sides, right? So it's this is vertical, yeah, gray and green. And so Dear Family, why your loved one won't accept help and how to help them anyway. And so the tagline is split up on either side. And then what they did is they took a vase and two flowers, and they matched the essence of why your loved one won't get help. The flower is wilted and dying, and the vase is cracked on that side. And then on the right side of the book, it's how to help them anyway. And the flower is vibrant and thriving. And this vase is on a table. And what they don't know, or they didn't know, is that I'm constantly talking about bringing others in the family to the recovery table, come to the table. I use the analogy table a lot. They also don't know that I'm constantly saying there's your lane and there's your loved one's lane. So this idea that they split it in half wasn't what I had told them in any of my, this is like a higher power movement here. I feel like with this book, because it brought me to tears. And then we shared it with our street team, and they just were wild about it. So it wasn't even a vote. It was just done. Did I describe it?
Now let's see it for people who are watching on YouTube. Look at that.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. I mean, it's visually appealing. And
and then the cracks through the book, they go across the back. Even there's a crack. So it's the broken to repair. It's the devastation to a beautiful miracle. And yet it's not yucky. It's not graphic with like bottles or pills or paraphernalia from drugs, right? It's beautiful.
It speaks to hope. I think that's why it stood out so much to me, this cover, because it goes from like it evokes emotion. You've got this sad dying flower on the one side, and then this bright, hopeful,
right,
looking upward. And I just think it just is so powerful when what you do. That combo is amazing.
Yeah. And the color pops, and that's not one of our colors, but it's a perfect fit. And when I went to bookstores and looked around at images that I liked, I can see this jumping out on a bookshelf. It would call my eyes to it. So no, we're crazy happy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Well, I'm so glad. And thank you for telling us, through the process of what that looked like. Now, as far as having a book actually in your business, what has that done for your business? And what are some recent wins with that?
Well, it's really early to answer that question, I'll tell you, but I can answer it because we've had people, we have a lot of followers. So we created a really big street team, right? They call it a launch team, or I liked the term street team. We had 150 people read the book before it came out in print. And so we could get some early feedback. And that was while we were just still formatting it, but it really energized me to have an army already talking about it. And even since it's come out, we've sold several hundred copies only. Just haven't really even started promoting it yet, but the feedback is powerful. So the first thing I noticed, that I can't tell you the relief. Someone saw me on TikTok. I do a lot of lives on TikTok. They bought the book, they read the book, and they called me, and they were so prepared. And I thought, oh my God, we can find the people that want this method, because they get to check it all out. And they love the format. The feedback I keep getting is it's so well laid out over and over and over. The chapter takeaways, like literally the format we got from Peaceful Profit, is what people are raving about. And so people are qualified when they're calling me. It's this first one that, I mean, there've been several, which is surprising so soon. And it just made sense. It was like they had been in our program. They were that qualified. And so I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, and more, because the other side to our business is treatment centers, and they want the book now too, for themselves and for, yeah. So it's opening, it's going to talk to me in 6 months, right? It's going to be opening doors, and we're super excited.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Circling back to what we talked about at the beginning, where there was so much convincing having to be done on the call, how has this changed the conversation?
It's not an issue anymore at all. There's zero resistance. They come in having a complete understanding of how we operate, and ready and wanting it. I mean, the three things that they were resistant about before they read the book, or before we had the book, were they were told, we have to wait for our loved one to want it. He doesn't want recovery, or there's nothing we can do. We have to stay in our own lane and just let him find bottom. Or the third trap, which is caring more about their recovery than their feelings about any changes that you're making as a result of their addiction. So they come in almost trained in our model and ready to say, please help me.
I love that. I can
Yeah.
just imagine how then the conversation is elevated. It's not this process of convince, convince. It's we
Right.
are on the same page. We already know all this. Now let's go on from here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wonderful. Now, this has all been so good. I would love to wrap up this episode by hearing from you how our listeners can find out more about you and what you're up to.
Sure. Website is tippingpointrecovery.com. And our Facebook group, which is really active and has a lot of content, curriculum, interviews with clients, interviews with our team. And the Facebook group is called Friends of Tipping Point, a hub for recovery conversations.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And I would also love to just hear advice that you have for others who are looking to add a book to their business.
Higher peaceful profits. Higher peaceful, follow, yeah, for sure, because we not only read your book and started writing our book as a result, but we joined your book writing program, and the cheering on, the every time I had a question, somebody was there to answer it. I mean, that last 3 months or 4 months that we did that is how it all came. It's why I have it in my hands. That's what I literally would say is it's an inside job and an outside job. You can't do it. Why would you try to do it alone? If you're not a book writing specialist, why would you think you know? Get out of the way so you can get your message out into the world. That's also what I'd say. And work with Peaceful Profits. I'm over the top happy with the experience.
Good. Good. Well, congratulations on all that you've done. It's amazing. You're doing amazing work. Thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for listening.